Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk has confirmed that Russian drones were shot down in Polish airspace overnight. He said it was the first time this had happened in NATO territory. Mr. Tusk called it a large-scale provocation and said he was ready to repel such provocations. Well, Mr. Tusk has been meeting with defence and security officials to discuss the violations. He said that although the search for drones is ongoing, there was no reason to panic and the situation is now under control. Well, the incursions happened during Russian attacks on targets in Ukraine, and Ukraine's President Zelensky said it set an extremely dangerous precedent for Europe. Russia is yet to comment. So let's cross over live to Warsaw, to the Polish capital, to speak to my colleague Adam Easton. And although the ongoing situation is now descaled, Adam, obviously this is a huge concern.
Yes, Kasia, this is obviously not the first time that Russian drones have violated Polish airspace, but this is the first time that Polish and NATO allied military aircraft, the Dutch F-35s are currently stationed in Poland, engaged Russian drones and shot them down. This is the first time, as Prime Minister Tusk said in his remarks ahead of the government crisis meeting, this he's described as probably a large-scale provocation by Moscow. Now, the authorities in Minsk, in Belarus, where we know that two of these drones have been discovered, Polish police have confirmed one, and local authorities have confirmed another, landed without causing any casualties, but damage to one house quite close to the Belarusian border with Poland, in eastern Poland. We know that the authorities in Minsk have said that they alerted the Polish military that drones had gone off course and were heading towards Poland. But the significance of this, although no casualties have been reported, Mr. Tusk said, this is the first time that so many drones, we don't know exactly how many, President Zelensky in Ukraine said 8, Donald Tusk said a large number, had entered Polish airspace, violating Polish airspace, and had actually been shot down. So that's the first time that this has happened, and the Polish military called it an unprecedented act of aggression.
So tell me, Adam, then we're not 100% sure if this was a deliberate attempt for Russian drones to stray into Polish airspace. Whatever has happened, however this has got to this position, Donald Tusk and Karol Nawrocki, the new president, they're going to have to be working together in order to try and work out how best to deal with this situation.
That's right, Kasia. Mr. Tusk and President Nawrocki have already met this morning in a meeting of the National Security Bureau, and they are coordinating there. They are from different political camps, of course. They're opponents on the domestic political scene, but when it comes to national security, they're on the same side. And their comments this morning are suggesting a joint effort in terms of response to these incursions overnight. As I said, this is not the first time Poland has been the victim of missile attacks from the war, Russia's full-scale war in Ukraine. 2 Polish citizens have been killed just after the war started in 2022, just near the Ukrainian border by the debris of a missile which landed on the Polish territory. And also, once there was a Russian cruise missile reportedly went all the way to central Poland, hundreds of kilometers over from the Belarusian border, and landed near the city of Bydgoszcz. And this wasn't even discovered until months later by a woman riding a horse in a forest. She discovered it. This was under the previous government. So, and as recently as last weekend, we've had reports of drones or unidentified flying objects landing in Poland. So this is not an uncommon situation. What is uncommon today is how many drones have violated Polish airspace, and also that they've been shot down for the first time.
OK, Adam, as always, many thanks for that update. Adam Easton there, my colleague, joining us live from Warsaw. So, of course, also important to say that the airports have now been opened. Warsaw's main Chopin airport had been closed. Let's cross over to Kyiv. My colleague Sarah Rainsford joins us live now. And Sarah, this encroachment of these drones into Polish airspace, obviously a huge worry. This is off the back of a large attack overnight, raid of strikes across Ukraine.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That is the context. This was part of a massive Russian aerial attack on Ukraine, where Ukraine is saying more than 400 drones were launched by Russia and more than 40 missiles were also fired. So here in Ukraine, people spent the night yet again in shelters, in bunkers, protecting themselves from that attack. And it was as people here were following the progress of missiles and drones on Telegram channels, on the internet, looking at where those things were heading, that they began to see some of them heading towards Poland. It was around about, I think, 1 o'clock in the morning here in Ukraine when I saw that chatter, and I saw people saying, look, these drones are heading some 50 kilometers into Polish territory. And that, for me, was a new turn, I think, in this war, because drones have strayed across the border into Poland before. They've never been shot down, and I don't think they've ever been this deep in Polish territory before, so far as we've been told. So I think, the fact that jets were scrambled not just to monitor the skies, but to shoot those drones down was quite a change. And here in Ukraine, in the past, there has been quite a lot of frustration with Poland's handling of, the threat on its border, if you like, because in the past, as I say, they have scrambled jets, but in some cases, they've kind of watched as the threat has turned back towards Ukraine. And then those missiles and drones, of course, hit here in Ukraine. So this time it is different. This time, Poland itself is saying that it was essentially under attack. It's called this an act of aggression, and Poland did take decisive action. So I think the question here is what happens next, and Ukraine certainly is pushing for a tough response from Poland, saying this is Russia testing the West, pushing it to its limits and trying to see how the West will respond.
Yeah, and arguably Volodymyr Zelensky frustrated that despite efforts by Donald Trump to get him and Putin round the table to come up with some kind of ceasefire and peace deal, the Russians continue with these large-scale attacks.
Yeah, and I think we should point out that the attacks have escalated since the attempt by Donald Trump to negotiate some kind of peace to get Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky to the talking tables. In fact, since Donald Trump rolled out the red carpet in Alaska for Vladimir Putin, the attacks here on Ukraine have escalated. So people have been living with this increased danger. And, when you hear the drones overhead, you hear them buzzing, you don't know where they're going to hit. It is extremely scary for people here in Ukraine. And then the missiles, too, which have followed 40 missiles last night. And just last weekend, we know that one of those missiles slammed into the main government building here in Kyiv. There was no one there. It was the middle of the night. But still, I think that was, again, seen as a symbolic kind of escalation by Russia, really, I think, testing Kyiv and Ukraine's resolve, but also its allies in the West, just seeing what response there will be. Because, of course, Donald Trump has promised all sorts of tough action against Moscow, but ever since he rolled out that carpet, ever since Vladimir Putin has done nothing to come to the talking table, the tough response hasn't happened either. So I think in Ukraine, that's what they're waiting for. What will the West do next?
Indeed. Sarah, as always, thank you very much. Sarah Rainsford, our Eastern Europe correspondent, talking to us from Kyiv. And just a number of lines coming out when it comes to those drones that were intercepted over Polish airspace. Italy's foreign minister has said that Italy firmly condemns the violation of Polish territory by Russian drones. Very serious and unacceptable event. And the question is whether this was targeted, whether this was Russia pushing forward, or was this stray drones? And we've got a line from Belarus saying that the Russian drones lost their way and entered Poland after being jammed by Ukrainian defences. The chief of the General Staff of the Belarusian Armed Forces issuing a statement saying that Belarus warned Poland about them, which allowed the Polish side to respond promptly to the actions of the drones by scrambling their forces on duty? And I think that's going to be the really big question over, that's the side of the Belarusians, that's what their suggestion is. Obviously, Belarus and Minsk are very in line and in step with what the Kremlin are saying. So just to caveat what Belarus is saying, that the Russian drones lost their way. So, of course, much more details on this, an ongoing story, lots of reaction coming up. We've got a live page on our website as well, and we'll be coming back throughout the day to this ongoing story. But just to say, airports now open back in Warsaw, but there could be some flight delays.